Okay, welcome to another session um, of drawing and painting. So, as you all know, that we will be doing a landscape, a sketch of a landscape, and we will be using oil pastels in it. If you have any other pastels, dry pastels, soft pastels, you can use that as well. Um, and yeah, so we are in lockdown for such a long time, and I thought we should do something which will remind us of our happy days when we are traveling, when we are camping, going on a long drive. So one such place that we have all visited is the Great Ocean Road, the 12 Apostles. Um, so that's what we're going to draw. And you all have seen the 12 Apostles. You've been there for a drive n number of times. So yeah, just to bring back the happy memories and create a beautiful landscape. That's basically what we are aiming to do here. So I'll show you what materials I have, and then we will get started with the sketch, and then we will apply colors as we go. We'll show you some great techniques with oil pastels that you can try. Hope you have fun. Okay, so moving the camera to all the stuff I've got. So this is just a just a paper. I've taken an A4 paper. You can take, sorry, an A3. You can take an A4 paper as well. And this is just a sheet from a sketch pad. Nothing expensive. Any sort of sketch pad will do. Um, Make sure it's for sketching for pencils mainly. Yeah, we don't want any um, watercolor paper and anything with too much of a rough texture. So it should have a smooth surface. All right, now for pastels, the main mediums that we're going to work with. So I use this quite often. You've probably seen me using this in previous videos. So these are Mangayo oil pastels. Um, so that's what I'm using today. And I'll also, so they're great oil pastels, student quality, artist quality. They work great. Um, yeah, they're a great pigment. Some pigments are deeper than the others, and they're a bit waxy. That's the texture. If you have used crayons before, so you know what waxy means. So that's the texture for some of the colors here. Um, the other brand that I also use is these Montmartre ones. Yeah, it's hard to find uh, good quality oil pastels when we are in a lockdown. So this is something cheap and you can quickly get from any sort of dollar store or pretty much anywhere. These are even more pigmented than the Mangaya ones. I personally love using these because they're less waxy, but they're also not too chalky. They are very smooth. They give a great texture. Very easy to blend as well. So I'm going to use a combination of these two. And then, of course, if you want to sketch, then just use a pencil and keep an eraser handy. That's all you need. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I hope you all can see my board clearly. Let me know if you need me to adjust. All right. So um, when you go to Great Ocean Road to see the 12 Apostles, um, you mainly, as well as a first timer, you mainly go through the information center, you park your car, and then you walk through the bushes, and then you see the vast landscape um, and the and the limestone structures. So uh, that's what we're trying to recreate here, as you've seen the picture. So I'll show you. So this is how it's going to look like. Okay. Uh, so imagine you're coming from that way, and then you're going this way. Okay, and you basically stand somewhere here and further to my left to take picture of the whole landscape. Okay, so we're going to start with this landmass as if you're standing here. When you're drawing a landscape, it's good to understand where exactly you're standing. What's your viewpoint? What are you looking at? So if you stand here, you will get a view. But if you stand there, somewhere there, you will get another view. Or say, for example, if you stand somewhere here on these masses, you will get another view. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind and figure out when you're drawing a landscape. So we'll start with this little landmass, easy peasy, and then we'll go gradually towards these landmasses. Okay. All right. Um, so I'm going to start with this corner and just make a rocky structure with some bushes in it. Uh, let me use, I will use some pastels straight away just so, um, yeah, it's brighter and it's more clearer. So in here, I'm going to make a rocky structure, just like so. And then um, some shrubs on it. So make some stems like this and some stems over here, some here. And then I'm going to add some leaves. Nothing defined, pretty simple. I'm just going along the stems and adding little leaves, larger leaves towards the top. As you come down to the joint, just reduce the size. We'll add more color to it later, but at the moment, just getting the sketch. Okay. And maybe just some shrubs here. Because this landmass that we have drawn, it has a slope. When you're drawing on the slope, make sure your direction of these shrubs um, go along the slope. And maybe just some shrubs here. Very random strokes. Okay. All right. We'll add more color to it, like I said. But as of now, we'll just stick to a basic sketch of this landmass. All right. Now we will be drawing the landmasses. Um, okay, so first let's start with the landmass that is um, closer to you, or the closest to you, I would say. So just here, I'm going to draw a line like so. And then over here. So if you have drawn this structure, just a little inside from the tip. I'm going to start just about here. I'm going to start drawing a line going from my right to my left. Okay, just like that. And then from somewhere here, I'm going to draw another line parallel to this. But as we come close to this end, we will reduce the distance between the two and join to the tip. So this is what I mean. Like that. Okay. And then just maybe somewhere here. Okay. So that is the basic structure of the landmass. And the beach is somewhere here. The beach is not quite accessible. If you remember, there are other beaches, but this beach is not accessible. So the beach is here, but it's not very wide. Okay. All right. Now we're going to draw the apostles. So depends on how many apostles you're going to draw. So I'm going to draw 3 large apostles, but to show that one is further away from the other, you have to make the one that you're going to draw first closer to you. That should be bigger. The next one should be a little bit smaller, and the other one should be even more smaller. So as you go towards this end, it will be smaller and smaller. Okay? So you'll see how I make the first one bigger than the other. All right. So let's start. Now the apostles, if you've seen, the structures they have, they're not, they're a bit deformed, right? They don't have neat straight lines. So make sure when you draw the lines, it's a little bit wobbly, a little bit shaky. Yeah. Okay. So let's start by drawing one structure here. And we're going to make it into a block with a wider base. Okay. A little tapered at the end. So that is one structure here. Don't worry about these lines here. It will all be covered by the colors as we go. Let's draw another one here. This will be a little bit like a pyramid. So that's another one there. And then a third one here. That's the third one. Now in here, I'm going to add a beach line. So just here. Okay. So that is the basic sketch. Now we're going to start putting some colors. Okay. So let's start with this part first. I'll show you what colors I'm using. So I am using this brown, which is yeah, like a coffee brown, the same color that I used to sketch. And then I'm also using another brown, which is a lighter shade and a warmer shade. So this is like a rusty brown, and this is a coffee brown. So those are two brown colors I'm using. So I will start with this structure first. I'm starting with the light color, or the light brown. And then I'll also use some brown. So in this section, I'm using a bit of brown. So as I'm going towards the bottom of this mass, landmass, I'm going to use a darker shade. Let me bring the camera a little closer. So as you can see, I'm leaving a little bit of white spaces in between. There's a reason for that. So once that's done, I'm taking, what color is this? Like a latte, I would say. Like a, yeah, like a, yeah, like a latte color, which is lighter than these two. So I'm taking that. If you don't have that, you can also use yellow. That's fine. So yeah, this is like a latte color, a muted light brown, and I'm going to blend it all together. So the white spaces that I left, I'm going to fill that up. Adding a little bit more brown here. make sure, because we're using 3 different colors, or even for that matter, 2 different colors if you're using, make sure it all blends in nicely. One color from the other shouldn't look like that it's separated. You're making um, a surface, and when you look at a surface, be it any surface, you look at mountains or you look at um, pastures or, yeah, farms or beaches, they have a uniformity. There is still a lot of color variation, but there is also a uniformity. You don't feel like, oh, that bit is so different than the other section. So that is important to achieve. Okay. So wherever I've added these shrubs, little shrubs, I'm um, doing a touch up of the brown, the darker brown, um, to show that there is some form of shadow, and that way the structures of the shrubs pops out. Okay, now I'm gonna take uh, a moss green color or maybe an olive color, just simple olive green, and I will highlight these shrubs. By highlighting, I just mean adding the olive green towards the top leaves, and I won't add any towards the bottom leaves. I'm also adding the olive to the shrubs, just the tips, just to show that they're catching the light. And I'll take my dark green color. I use the same dark green to do these leaves. So I'm going to take the same color and just finish the shrubs. Add a little bit of depth wherever needed. Okay, just like so. All right, now let's move on to the apostles. Now for the apostles, um, I will start with a yellow ochre color, a yellow ochre like that, a camel color, a yellow ochre color. A lot of people say camel color. And I'll first just roughly go through, add like go through the whole picture and add some yellow ochre base to it. I'm not doing the surfaces as yet, just doing the walls. Because the structure here, it's coming this side and it's actually getting curved. That's why my strokes are a little bit curved as well. Okay, now I'm taking that latte sort of a color again, and I'll add another layer on top of the yellow ochre. This is actually, yeah, it's actually a caramel looking color. Okay. If you don't have so much variety, just use something that is closer to these shades. Okay, so I haven't covered the whole space. I've just added along the edges. Now I'm going to add along this edge. And now I'm going to take a shade darker with the brown and add some contrast here. Adding some more contrast towards the ground. And a bit to the outer tip as well. And then I'm taking my latte shade again and just blending it all together. You can also blend it with yellow. These are warm shades. So you can always blend it with yellow if you have yellow. Okay. Now moving on to this part. So we're going to use the same sort of technique, but when I'm adding color to this space, I'm going to add a darker color, and then I will go lighter as I go from my right to my left. Okay, so starting with the yellow ochre once again. And as you can see that when I'm coloring this vast area, my strokes are parallel to the page or left to right. So make sure you do that, and that's where you will achieve a better look compared to applying strokes like this. I always emphasize on how important it is to get the direction of your strokes right when you're using color pencils or oil pastels. Okay, now just taking a deeper shade first and going to this corner and adding a bit of shadow there. Very little, you don't want to add too much. Very little shadow. Just like that. And I might add a little bit to this tip as well. That's it. And now I'm going to take the caramel color and blend it. When I blend, I often drag some color into the space that doesn't have that shade. So see, I had added brown here, and I'm blending with the third color, and I'm also dragging the brown inside to create a uniformity. So when you do blending, it shouldn't just focus on the area that you're blending in. So not just this area. To create that uniformity, you have to drag a bit of color and show the flow of it. Also blending this tip. And what I'm doing is, in this middle bit, I am mostly adding this caramel color towards the top edge of the structure. Just like that. As you have seen that I haven't added anything here. Now, I'll take a darker shade and add some shadow here, the part that's close to the ground. Very, very little once again, just to make the space pop out. Okay, and I'll take my camel color again or my yellow ochre and blend it in. Just like that. Okay, now for the surface, the top part, I will be using um, a mix of rust and probably a mix of dark brown. I'll show you the colors I'm using in a minute. So pretty much the same colors. So these two I've been using already. This dark coffee color and the yellow color, the yellow ochre, sorry. And I'm just adding a little bit of this rust that I added for this one. This one. So I'm using that as well. So 3 colors. Okay. So starting with the yellow ochre. And a little bit of brown here. And then adding some rust as well. When you're applying your colors, try to visualize how you're going to make the surface look like it's the surface and it's not the wall. Okay. So sometimes when you look at your artwork, you just know that this part should have been a tad bit lighter than the other. So sometimes look at your artwork as well. Just maybe hold it a little bit away from your eyes and gaze your observation on it and try to understand what is not working out and what looks great. Okay, so this is a cool trick that I use. When you're using pastel, eventually the tip becomes blunt because you're using it so often. So I pull down the paper cover and use the back to get a neater line. You can also break your pastel if you like. And once you break it, it gives a sharper edge. That way, you get a neat line. So wherever I feel that I need a little bit of shadow, for example, in this tip and at that end, I have added the dark coffee color. When you're using a very dark shade like black or coffee color, just make sure you use it carefully because yeah, it's hard to remove dark pigments. Okay, and I'll add a little bit more of this rusty brown here. Don't forget to blend. Okay. So that's about it. Um, let's quickly move on to these apostles. Now for the apostles, we will try using a bit of black, sorry, a bit of this dark coffee brown that we've been using here. And also I'm using this pale yellow color. Okay. It's also like a yellow ochre, but a lighter yellow ochre. If you don't have that, once again, you can use the yellow ochre that you've been using. Now, this part of the apostle, I'm going to add a deeper shade, and this part I'm going to keep it light. So I'll show you how I'll do that. So very lightly adding the deep coffee color. Like that. You can do this for this one as well. And for this one as well. Okay. Now blend it in with this ochre. And I'm going to use the same ochre here as well. At the top as well. Okay. Now I'll take a little bit of the caramel color that I used in these sections and add it here. And some brown strokes like this. If you see the 12 apostles, they have these very faint parallel brown strokes. Those are basically how the structure uh, came to effect. And because of the waves and the constant current of the sea, the structure got eroded. So that's how you get those strokes. Okay, moving on to this one. I'm adding a little bit of this dark brown towards the top to create some shadow. And then I'm using the caramel color to fill rest of the spaces. And I'll blend it in with the pale yellow ochre as well. Okay, doing the same for this structure. So I'm using layers of the caramel color and the pale yellow color. Now, wherever I need the maximum amount of light, I'm using the pale yellow ochre color. Wherever I need a little less light, I'm using the caramel. And wherever I need the darkest contrast and shadow, I'm using the dark brown. Okay, so because this is so far away, you don't have to do too much detailing in it. As long as you get a uniform shade, that should be enough. All right, now let's make the sand. Now with the sand, I'll just be using, this says a pale ochre. So I'm using this pale, I don't know what it looks like a custard color. And I will just rip off a little bit from the tip. So I get a bit of a surface in the pastel. And I'll hold it very flat. And I'll go from left to right. Okay. Just add a little bit more pressure wherever you need some depth, and less pressure wherever you need light. So I'm adding more pressure towards the corners and the space right next to these structures. Just here. So quite roughly done, not too much effort, as long as you hold your pastel correctly. Okay. Now I'll also use a bit of a deep blue. This is not very deep. This is like a cobalt blue or like an electric blue, if that makes sense. And once again, I'm going to rip off a little bit towards the top and cover the C. So when you want a large space colored and you don't want a lot of detailing in it, this is a cool technique that you can use. So as you can see that I'm going in between the beach line and I'm adding more pressure, but as I'm coming back, I'm reducing the pressure. Just to show the waves hitting the shore. And I'm going to add a bit of pressure at the bottom of the page. And as I go up, I'll reduce that. Also, wherever the apostles are, I'm applying pressure to show that there's a structure in the water. Because it will create a shade, a shadow, right? That's what I'm trying. Just like that. And once again, as I go deeper in the water, I've reduced pressure and just roughly covering the water. Don't forget to go in between the leaves of the shrubs. Okay. So in this tip at the very end, I'm adding a bit of pressured application as well, because it's so farther away that you don't see much waves there. You just see this shade or a shadow. Okay. Look at your drawing and see if there are any spaces that look uneven, even it out. Okay. I will also take a little bit of white. All right. And I will lightly blend in this blue in some spaces. So just wherever I've applied less pressure, I'm lightly blending it with this white. Wherever I've created a shadow with more pressure, I'm leaving those spaces alone. But make sure it's uniform. So just to mimic the frothy look of the waves, that's why I'm adding the white. You can also add a little bit of green if you're doing sea waves, because there's so much weeds and other like remainings of plants under the water that sometimes the water appears a little bit green, just like so. Okay, now we'll quickly do the sky. Now for the sky, um, if you want to add something like maybe like a hot air balloon, or yeah, like someone doing a paragliding, you can go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to do a flat application of the sky. So I'm taking a little bit of purple and a little bit of light blue. I'll show you the colors I'm choosing. So yeah, so that's like a deep purple, and that's like a light blue, as you can see. So those are the colors I will be using mainly. I might as well use a navy blue as well. So that's a navy blue, quite deep. Okay, so I will add just a teeny tiny bit of navy blue along this line. And then some purple here. And some blue here. Also mixing some blue with the purple. All strokes are left to right or right to left, or parallel to the page, leaving a bit of white there. Now I'll take my white pastel and I'm just ripping off the paper a little bit more so I can cover a larger area and blend it all in. make sure you also color the white spaces of the page. Just because it's white and I'm coloring with white doesn't mean that you won't color those areas, yeah? So as you can see, I'm also coloring the white spaces. Once that's done, just go back to blue. And make some cloud-like formations. So first, I did a bit of lines just to create a base to make roundish strokes, just like this. You can take your purple as well. And because purple is a deep pigment, very lightly, you can do the same thing. There shouldn't be any sharp lines. Blend it in. If you want this effect, blend it in. Okay. That's about it. And what I'll quickly do is to remove the tapes and see how it looks like.
That looks great, Madhubani.
Thank you. Okay. And that's it. So that's how the whole thing looks like.